The movie starts with a conversation over the radio between Gerald, who's in charge at Mission Control, and Commissioner Roger, giving permission to dock the ship. Roger talks to Gerald and his wife Abigail, who is worried about the launch. Roger then floats around the ship, making sure everything's working right and putting in the correct info. About 2.5 years before the mission, Roger and Abigail are grilling burgers in their yard when Abigail tells him they got a call from NASA. Taking the call, he learns they have a briefing the next day about an upcoming mission. Excited, Roger shares the news with his wife, and they hug, happy that he might finally achieve his dream. The next day, a general gives a briefing to a group explaining there's been a strange radio signal picked up by one of their stations. He plays the audio for Roger and Secretary Stewart so they can understand exactly what he's talking about. Gerald goes on to explain that there were more anomalies after the initial one, each with a higher frequency. When played together, they form a perfect major triad, creating what essentially sounds like space music. He reveals that these signals were not natural but artificial, meaning someone in the galaxy was intentionally sending them. Gerald gets up from his chair and walks to the projected image to emphasize his point. He informs the group that scientists have determined the signals are coming from the same galaxy, checking his computer for confirmation. Matthew adds that they've traced the signals to 3 different locations, including the dwarf planet Iris. Stewart looks at Roger and reveals that this is why he was called into the meeting. It's now Roger's responsibility to fly to each location, collect samples, and, if possible, locate the transmitters themselves. Roger is thrilled about this opportunity, as it's been his lifelong dream. He gladly accepts the mission, which is set to take place in 2.5 years. The Chinese government is also part of the mission, and Stewart emphasizes to Roger the urgency of reaching the locations quickly, compressing the original 8-year plan into just 2. Gerald informs the captain that the mission's duration will be around 10 years, but he reassures them that Roger will spend most of that time in stasis. Despite being a married man, Roger finds it hard to turn down the opportunity for what could be the greatest discovery in human history. He informs the higher-ups that his wife will be able to manage during his absence. When Roger shares the news with his wife, Abigail becomes upset that he's committing to 10 years without consulting her. Roger explains that she knew the nature of his work when they got married, and that this mission is the most important thing he could do with his life. After a heated discussion, Abigail eventually agrees to support him throughout the entire journey. 2.5 years later, Roger is launched into space and prepares to put himself in stasis before settling into the small box for the duration of the mission. Before entering stasis, Roger instructs Gerald to take care of his wife and begins the process. Months later, he wakes up feeling the effects of prolonged inactivity. The ship's advanced air unit, Ferdinand, greets him and guides him through the process of checking his health monitors. Roger learns that he's just 24 hours away from entering Saturn's orbit, his first destination. After receiving a complete systems report, Roger has Ferdinand display all the messages and transmissions from Earth that accumulated during his deep sleep. It takes hours, but he finally enters Saturn's orbit safely. While observing the landmass close to the signal, he discusses the best landing spot with the ship's AI. While stargazing, Roger receives a transmission from Gerald, congratulating him on his safe arrival and for being the first man to achieve this goal. Gerald also mentions that Roger's wife, Abigail, sends her regards, but is currently unable to send a message due to the emotional breakdowns she's been experiencing. After Gerald's message, promising to share more details after the mission, he reminds Roger of his primary goal: to investigate the source of the signals and report back. With well wishes, Gerald ends the transmission. Roger prepares to descend in the smaller ship, and Ferdinand informs him that once he disconnects from the mothership, he'll be under the guidance of another AI with an enthusiastic female voice. Starting the descent, Roger encounters a bit of atmospheric turbulence but manages to land safely. Upon arrival, he wastes no time and heads straight for the area presumed to be the signal's source. After trekking on foot for a while, he realizes the signal is emanating from a lake composed of liquid methane. Entering the shallow lake, he searches and discovers a small black sphere that seems to be generating the signal. Confident it's the source, he collects a sample. As Roger notices a large methane cloud approaching, he hurries back to his ship, but realizes launching is too risky due to the potential for combustion. Forced to wait out the storm, he takes a closer look at the object he retrieved. When he touches it with his bare hands, he experiences a strange flash in his head and an alluring sensation. Intrigued and somewhat unsettled, Roger decides to pick up the object and stores it properly after the storm passes. Once the weather clears, Roger launches the ship and returns to the mothership, preparing for his next destination. After getting settled, he sends a transmission to Earth, informing them that he has completed the mission and sharing details about what he found. he takes pictures of the object to provide measurements for the scientists on Earth, and sends another transmission, expressing concern that he may have contaminated the object by touching it with his bare hands and revealing that the object reacted to his touch. Roger requests permission to conduct a repeat of the previous experiment and sends the recording to Earth. Simultaneously, he continues to document the other samples he discovered on the planet. Amidst this work, he receives a transmission from his wife, who informs him that her computer was hacked by people seeking information about his mission. The secretary, upset by the breach, is threatening to ban Abigail from accessing mission control. Roger is visibly upset, but recognizes his limited ability to address the situation from space. He expresses his love for his wife and puts himself back into space. Months later, Roger wakes up in the orbit of Neptune. Ferdinand informs him that no data had been collected on the planet due to a field probe malfunction, requiring them to take on the task themselves. Roger inquires about messages from his wife, but Ferdinand reports that there haven't been any, though they have received over 200 messages from Mission Control. Ferdinand informs Captain Roger that an anomaly has occurred with the signal transmitted by the sphere during his stasis state. He explains that each time the signal changed, Roger's brain function showed a spark, resembling a dreamlike state, which was previously considered impossible. Perplexed by this revelation, Roger decides to investigate further. Wearing gloves, he retrieves the sphere from its compartment, asking Ferdinand to record him. As Roger touches the sphere's speaker, he experiences flashes of images in his head, causing him to fall. Quickly, he returns the object to its compartment. Meanwhile, he receives a new transmission from Gerald, delivering the disturbing news that the Chinese aircraft had an accident, resulting in the death of all crew members. Roger gears up, takes his ship, and executes a smooth landing on the low-gravity planet. Upon leaving the ship, he navigates down a rocky cliff and discovers the second sphere lodged between two spiky stones. While climbing the cliff, Roger accidentally drops the second sphere, losing precious time in the effort to retrieve it and barely making it back to his ship before running out of oxygen. Once inside, he quickly starts the ship to catch up with the mothership as it orbits the planets. Upon reaching Magellan, Roger records a video for Mission Control, announcing the successful retrieval of the second sphere and presenting the mysterious objects. Ferdinand informs Roger that it managed to capture pictures from orbit during the descent and discovered an ocean a few kilometers below the surface of Neptune. It describes objects with different formations moving inside the ocean, devoid of any recognizable pattern. Shocked, Roger wonders if they could be fish, but Ferdinand expresses doubts. Hours later, Roger receives a transmission from the secretary, who appears upset with the experiment video. The secretary issues a warning for everyone to stay away from the objects, citing the risk of contamination, as they still have no understanding of what they are. Ignoring the annoying secretary's words, Roger decides to touch both spheres simultaneously, curious about their potential connection. On day 2079, Roger launches his ship to Eris for his final mission before heading home. As usual, he leaves his ship upon reaching the dwarf planet, searching for what he assumes is the third sphere. Following the signal, he locates it but discovers a slimy substance covering it. Excitedly, he takes a sample of the substance and heads back to the mothership, reaching Magellan. When Roger tries to dock his ship, he realizes the mechanism seems closed. When he attempts to inform Ferdinand, the AI insists that the systems are functioning fine. Suddenly, Ferdinand malfunctions and speaks in Chinese, reminding Roger of the secret message Geraldo warned him about regarding the potential hacking of the air by foreign entities. Despite the unsettling situation, Roger tries to hold back his panic. Roger urgently requests Ferdinand to erase its memory before it integrates into the entire system. After clearing the AI's memory, Roger overrides it to enable manual docking. In a hurry, he enters Magellan, providing specific orders to protect the spacecraft from further manipulation. Completing these urgent security measures, Roger breathes a sigh of relief, feeling momentarily safe. He proceeds to put the samples he found into the analysis machine, anxiously awaiting confirmation on whether the substance is biological. A few minutes later, Ferdinand informs him that the substance is indeed organic, confirming that Roger has discovered life. Overwhelmed with joy, Roger celebrates this incredible achievement by running around the ship like a madman. Once he calms down, he sends a transmission to Earth, gleefully explaining the nature of the samples he found. He mentions that the AI is still working out the details of the substance but assumes it might be some form of bacterium. Roger then takes out the spheres, attempting to unravel the mystery surrounding them. As Roger brings the spheres together, he starts experiencing flashes of images in his mind, which triggers an intense burst of energy, scrambling the frequency inside the ship. Reacting swiftly, he separates the spheres and instructs Ferdinand to record the signals. Determined, he attempts the experiment once more. The AI presents its assumptions regarding how the spheres communicated in sync with each other and managed to reach out to Earth. Ferdinand transmits all the gathered information back to Mission Control and prepares the stasis box for Roger. Sitting in front of his computer, Roger prepares a message for his wife. He begins by expressing his profound love and gratitude for her companionship throughout the years. However, he confesses that what he has discovered now is too significant to leave behind. He discloses his decision to follow the signals to a different location and apologizes for what he is about to do. Roger, realizing the importance of acknowledging his wife's needs, releases her from any obligation he may have inadvertently imposed by embarking on the 10-year mission without addressing these emotional aspects. After completing the video messages, he instructs Ferdinand to alter their trajectory towards the Oort clouds, a deviation from the established protocol. Mission Control swiftly responds, demanding Roger's immediate return to Earth along with the beacons. They emphasize the illegality of his actions, arguing that Magellan is U.S. property. Although technically challenging to enforce their directives in space, Mission Control contends that Roger is bound by the legalities associated with Magellan. Gerald makes it clear that his orders are for Roger to return home immediately. Despite the pleas from everyone, Roger persists in his new course, driven by a conviction that something extraordinary awaits him, a journey he believes is uniquely his own. And with this, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching, guys.